Tonight, failing to deliver. 2 years since a promise to completely overhaul the care system to improve the lives of young people, progress has yet to be made.
To be blunt, I don't think I could be satisfied with any progress in anything over 2 years of a global pandemic.
Also making the headlines, Storm Eunice sweeps in, bringing snow to much of the country.
In sport, Dreamland in Deutschland. Rangers produce a remarkable performance to stun European giants Borussia Dortmund in the Europa League.
And celebrations as Scotland's Eve Muirhead guarantees the second medal for Team GB at the Winter Olympics. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The First Minister says the response to the COVID pandemic has prevented progress on a major overhaul of Scotland's care system. It's more than 2 years since Nicola Sturgeon gave her backing to The Promise, which committed to radical reform.
The organisation leading the overhaul of the system has admitted it's shameful the lives of many young people have not improved. However, the First Minister says she now wants to kickstart the momentum for reform. Here's our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie.
The First Minister was taught some new dance moves today. She was visiting a community centre, offering support to care-experienced young people and their families.
There's loads of clubs and there's always things for every child each age.
I think for me it's helps improve my social skills.
No question asked, they're just always going to be there for you.
I want to say to you very clearly today that we will keep the promise.
It's 2 years since Nicola Sturgeon committed to implementing the findings of a major review of the care system. However, some of those at the heart of the drive for change have accused The Promise of failing to deliver.
Are you satisfied with the progress that has been made on The Promise so far?
I think, to be blunt, I don't think I could be satisfied with any progress in anything over 2 years of a global pandemic, because it has inevitably taken people's attention in another direction and consumed people in the response to COVID.
The use of restraint in residential care homes, the removal of supervision orders before the age of 16. Are these not areas that could have been progressed by now with COVID, even when that was happening? Yeah,
I think there's fair comment there. I do. The thing about COVID is that it's consumed, many people in government and the public sector generally. I think we are making progress on some of these issues. There have been some issues raised recently about, which are not new, about children being taken off supervision orders just before their 16th birthday, which then deprives them of other support. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. As First Minister, I've got responsibility for a whole range of things on a daily basis. There are a few things that are more important to me than making sure we do keep this promise.
Those driving The Promise, they've said the lack of progress is shameful and heartbreaking. I'm wondering if you agree with that assessment.
Look, as long as there is a single young person in the care of the state who's having an experience that is not what we would want, any parent would want for their own child, then I take that as heartbreaking and not good enough, and that's a really serious, sincere commitment that I'm making.
Charities remain impatient for change.
We know that there's been other pieces of legislation that were passed long before COVID that we're still not seeing fully implemented. So as much as COVID has absolutely delayed some of the delivery, which we completely understand, it's not good enough. And actually we need to get to a position where we're moving much quicker on this now. And so it's encouraging to see this renewed focus from the First Minister.
The government is planning to publish details of how it intends to implement reform before Easter.
So, Ewan, will the First Minister's comments today be enough to satisfy those who've been critical about a lack of progress?
Well, I think her words will certainly be welcome. There was an acceptance there that progress has been too slow and that improvements could have been made in some key areas despite COVID. Now, you'll remember that there was a huge sense of optimism at the launch of The Promise 2 years ago, and the main reason for that was the fact that it was driven by those with direct experience of the care system, and the the frustration for them is born of a concern that this review will turn out like all the others before it and deliver very little. And we heard from those who run the promise a few weeks ago that things have actually got worse for some people in some areas. Now, the First Minister has made it a very personal pledge to reverse that, and ultimately she is going to be judged on whether the life experiences and the chances for those growing up in care improves in the coming years.
Ewan, thank you.
Well, it was the second storm of the week. Eunice came hot on the heels of Dudley and brought snow to much of the country and major disruption outside Scotland. Millions were urged to stay at home south of the border, and a man was killed by a falling tree in Ireland. Here, after some early morning snow, Scotland's two main cities escaped unscathed. But it was a different picture further north, as our reporter Vanessa Taff found out.
Standstill traffic and snowy roads ahead. For many waking up across the country, it was a slow start to the day. The Central Belt was spared the worst of Storm Eunice, with conditions less disruptive than forecast. Transport bosses had been preparing for the worst, and gritters worked throughout the morning to keep the country moving.
People need to slow down, drive to the conditions and take cognizance to the fact that it is snowing. It probably hasn't been quite as bad as we thought it might be, but we always plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Help was on hand in Aberdeenshire when this ambulance carrying a 10-month-old baby got stuck on the A96. Meanwhile, the brunt of the storm hit the south of England, where London had its first ever red weather warning. The iconic O2 Arena has been left looking worse for wear.
Get it down! Go on, lad!
Passengers on this flight from Glasgow to Heathrow had a hairy landing as winds blasted the jet. The country they left behind, a little less shaky. Of course, a spell of snow like this is a good chance to get on your snow gear, grab a sledge and head to a hill like this. While there's been disruption for many, it's been lots of fun for others.
Sledging and
making snowballs,
and jumping on people's snowmen.
That was hard.
Oh, it's been really fun.
Yeah,
because
really
wake up in the morning and look out the window and it's just got a white sheet all over the garden.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's very cold, but also very fun too.
And we're completely unprepared. We don't even have gloves.
Tonight, some communities are still under a blanket of snow, with a week of storms leaving people asking, what next? Vanessa Taff, STV News.
OK, well, we can now go to Sean Batty in Perthshire, who's been storm chasing all day and, in fact, throughout the week.
Yeah, what a week it's been. I've certainly been in my element. Of course, Wednesday in Machrihanish for the arrival of Storm Dudley. Last night, Abington for the arrival of the weather front and the snow from Eunice. And I travelled with that weather front this morning. And the weather just changed so drastically from rain, snow. I went through some heavy snow in Cumbernauld, into rain in Stirling. And then just a few miles up the road in Dunblane, it then turned to thick snow. And then really north of that, it has been mainly snow. And we've had a lot in some areas today. A little bit more still to come tonight though.
Well, you've certainly been on your travels, Sean, but what's next?
Well, I've got a wee friend for you. Come and see. We're going to call it John. Not looking the happiest though, because over the last few hours it's been leaning over. But don't worry, it's going to turn colder tonight. What that's showing us is there has been a thaw. We've even had some rain here today, but a bit of a thaw, but it is going to freeze tonight, so icy tonight. And then the possibility, wait for this, of another storm on Sunday. If it's named, that would be Franklin, but stay tuned for the forecast.
All right, Sean, with his sad snowman. Thanks very much.
One of Scotland's leading virologists has told STV News she believes the compulsory wearing of face masks should end next month. Christine Tate-Burkhard was speaking as the UK and Scottish governments prepare their plans for living with coronavirus.
There's also likely to lead to a debate about how long we can continue with free COVID testing and enforced isolation for people who contract it. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
People in Pennycook are still living in the shadow of the pandemic, but not everyone here agrees on whether it's time to move on.
My family anyway, we're quite confident that we're coming out of it now, and yeah, we're feeling good that we're going to get back to some sort of normal quite soon.
I think people must wear masks in public places until it's a lot more controlled. We need to get rid of these masks, I think.
Yeah. What, do you think that? I mean, that's something that may well be looked at. You'd welcome the end of masks. Well, why is that?
Oh, just because I can hardly breathe.
The virus peaked early in the new year with more than 20,000 cases reported in a single day. It then fell quickly and in recent weeks has been largely stable, with today's new case figure being just over 7,000. The success, though, of vaccination in protecting against serious illness has made case numbers less important. With a higher prevalence of the virus in circulation, inevitably the figures for people in hospital with it rose too, peaking in mid-January just below 1,600. But significantly, that's quite a bit lower than last winter when the number went above 2,000. And that is despite daily case rates this year being around 10 times higher. And if we look at those requiring the most critical treatment, it peaked at 59 people in intensive care on the 12th of January, only a handful above where it was at the start of December before cases exploded. And in the last few days, the numbers have dropped to levels not seen since the early summer of last year. England is already making plans to remove all restrictions, and while Scotland has eased the rules on face coverings in schools, this expert on coronavirus told me she believes it's almost time to go further.
I think the next step is to go for the general community removal of masks, probably kind of mid-March, maybe retaining them for a wee while longer in public transport just because it's very crowded, uncontrollable, and just at least remove the mandatory aspect of wearing masks. People still have the freedom to choose.
The other side of that choice, a senior World Health Organization official has been arguing even if you no longer had to wear a mask, it could give the virus a free ticket if you decide not to.
There's a poster in this window talking about social distancing, the 2-metre rule. Remember that? It was once a key tool in the fight against COVID-19. But now that an end date begins to come into sight for some of the other measures, it may be that all of us will come to regard the risks from the virus very differently to how we once did. Gordon Cree, STV News, Pennycook.
Other stories now, and more than a quarter of calls to NHS 24 were abandoned over the winter. A Freedom of Information request by Scottish Labour found that between the 1st of October and January the 16th, more than 160,000 calls to the helpline were hung up. The longest wait for a call to be answered took 2 hours and 21 minutes. NHS 24 says unprecedented demand over the period led to longer than usual waiting times.
1 in 3 people would fall below the poverty line if they lost their job. A survey by the Office for National Statistics also found that the richest 10% of people are 217 times wealthier than the poorest 10%. A Scottish man living in Ukraine with his wife and young children has told STV News he fears they may be unable to leave the country. Ken Stewart, who's based just outside Kiev, is planning to return to Scotland with his family if the current crisis escalates. But he's still waiting for essential travel documents.
The United States claims the build-up of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border is the biggest in Europe since the Second World War. Russia has accused the West of creating hysteria. Meanwhile, Ukrainians in Scotland have been speaking of their fears. Louise Hawsey reports.
Ken Stewart is delighted to be a father again. His little boy Douglas was born just last week. But what should be a happy time for his family has instead been filled with worry. Originally from Edinburgh, Ken lives just outside Kiev with his Ukrainian wife Tetiana and their 2 children. He wants to return to Scotland due to the escalating crisis with Russia, but is having problems getting a visa for his wife.
Unless we have a visa for my wife, we're not going to be able to travel to the UK. I've had no feedback from all the queries that I've sent to the visa people in Sheffield.
Ken says he wants to make sure his family is prepared for any eventuality.
The situation at the moment, it's very fluid. nobody really knows what's going to happen. And it could go very, very wrong very quickly. And if that happens, we could end up in any situation. So we need to be able to get out. We could possibly go to the west of Ukraine, but, we don't know what's going to happen. If there is a large-scale invasion, there could be panic. There could be a mass exodus. So, you're trying to weigh up the situation and keep ahead of such things.
Here in Scotland, Valeria is also worried. Born in Donetsk in the east of Ukraine, she now lives in Aberdeen with her Scottish husband. The rest of her family are in Kiev, having fled from Donetsk in 2014 with just one suitcase when pro-Russian separatists declared a People's Republic.
I feel like horrible because I haven't been at home since summer 2019, and before I used to go to Ukraine 3 times per year. Basically sad to see how my friends and relatives struggling with all these conflicts. I'm worried about them as well, so just keep in touch, contact through social media, through telephone, WhatsApp. We'll see.
For Valeria, the prospect of her parents having to uproot their lives once again is heartbreaking, and the continuing crisis in her home country feels relentless.
They've done already once, so they don't want to go again and again. Probably maybe more tiredness. Why again Ukraine? Why they're who next? Definitely miss my hometown.
Louise Hosey, STV News.
Well, what a day it was for Team GB in the curling at the Winter Olympics. Eve Muirhead's rink secured a dramatic extra-end victory over Sweden, guaranteeing them either a gold or silver medal. Ollie Dickinson reports.
This is the moment friends and family of Scotland's curlers knew they'd be going for gold. Success against Sweden means Scotland's Eve Muirhead and her all-Scottish rink will now face Japan in Sunday's final.
Any parent knows that watching your kid play sport is really tough. And I used to go down to the under-17s and you're watching your kids play and you're worrying for them and stressing. And you think by now it'd be easier, but it doesn't. You're just watching them and you're praying it goes well, but the heart's going, the nerves, and there's nothing you can do. You're just sitting there helpless.
11 ends of drama swung one way, then the other, before an extra end victory sparked wild celebrations.
You're coming home with a medal, you can go out there, relax, play a good game, and it's Japan in the final. We did beat them in the round robin, and it'll be a great final, and it'll be a good game, and hopefully we'll come home with the gold.
With both Bruce Mowat and Eve Muirhead's rinks guaranteed an Olympic gong, a huge weekend awaits Team GB's curlers. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Now, Aberdeen are close to appointing St Mirren boss Jim Goodwin as their new manager after being given permission to open talks. Saints confirmed the approach this afternoon, insisting it was an opportunity Goodwin wanted to explore. Captain Joe Shaughnessy isn't surprised his manager's in demand.
It'd be disappointing for us. We're on a good run and we're having a good season so far. But, like I said, that's football and we're just, it's bound to happen. When a manager is doing well, there's obviously going to be interest and stuff in him, so I'm not really surprised. He's done a good job here, and we'll just see what happens, I suppose.
Graham Alexander says he'll always stick up for his Motherwell players despite being hit with a 2-game touchline ban for criticising referees. Alexander will be in the stand as the Steelmen welcome Aberdeen. Elsewhere in the Premiership tomorrow, St Mirren travel to Livingston, Hibs host Ross County and St Johnstone take on Hearts on Sunday. First up, it's Dundee United Rangers at noon before Celtic welcome Dundee at 3 o'clock. Finally to boxing, and Josh Taylor says he's ready to show the world his world titles can't be touched when he returns to the ring to defend his undisputed crown for the first time. With just over a week to go until his fight against Jack Catterall at the Hydro, Sheila McLaren caught up with Taylor at their training camp in Essex.
17 weeks of blood, sweat and tears, but the end is in sight for Josh Taylor after one of the longest training camps of his career. Under the watchful eye of Ben Davison, he's tested his body to the limit day after day. Now he's ready to come home and put his titles on the line.
Josh, the last time you were at the Hydro was when you won your first world title. If you look back to then, and the Josh Taylor then could see you now as undisputed champion, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, I always knew that I would be world champion. You know, I always known that I was going to become world champion. But did I ever expect to be undisputed world champion? Probably not. You know, because I always thought that happens to your superstars in the sports. You know, your Mike Tyson's, your Lennox Lewis's, your this and that. You know, the big superstars of this game. Your Floyd Mayweather's. Although none of them really done it. You know, so I've made a lot of history in my short career, and I'm very proud of what I've did. But Jack's standing in the way here, all crumbling down, and you know I've got to make sure that it doesn't.
Taylor brought all 4 belts back to Scotland in May last year, but his victory in Vegas was in front of a reduced crowd and wasn't seen by many back home. Now he's getting set for a fight that will be witnessed by a full house in Glasgow and a national television audience.
The lockdowns taught me that it was really hard for me to fight in front of empty halls, you know, and people that weren't there. I found that really hard to keep motivated, but you know, at the same time my titles were on the line and I had to produce the performances under uncomfortable sort of circumstances. It's been a long time coming, this fight. You know, I've been down here in camp for a long time, so yeah, I'm feeling good, ready to go now. All the hard work's done now. You know, it's just fine tuning and getting dialed in, and then sort of tapering down and saving the energy now. So yeah, I can't wait.
The countdown is on, and a successful defence next Saturday would mark another step forward in a remarkable career for the Tartan Tornado.
Final bit of news in the last hour, and Morton manager Dougie Imrie has been banned for 10 matches, 4 of them suspended for historical betting offences. That's all your sport. Have a good weekend.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
We've heard from Sean about the weather's impact today. What can we expect ahead? Here's Philip with the forecast.
The outlook for the day is calm and settled. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Hello, good evening. Well, at the moment, Storm Eunice is now tracking eastwards out towards Denmark, but things are remaining fairly unsettled as we head into the weekend. Tomorrow, not looking too bad. Sunday, though, we need to keep an eye on this deep area of low pressure approaching from the south of Iceland, as that could bring with it some severely strong winds. Back to just now, though, and through this evening and overnight, the main areas of rain and snow from the daytime are being dragged eastwards by the storm. Behind it, we'll have some further wintry showers feeding in on that bitterly cold northwesterly airflow. There will be some clear skies between the showers, though, and that could lead to some icy patches on the road. And the Met Office have issued a yellow weather warning for ice for the rest of tonight. Looking ahead to tomorrow, a cold, wintry start to the day, but for the rest of the afternoon, not looking too bad. The winds will be light. Generally, it will remain dry, and we will have some sunny spells too. Temperatures will be less cold than today as well, highs of 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, so more on average for the time of year. Looking ahead to Sunday, and like I said, things turn unsettled once again. We'll see these weather fronts making their way across the country associated with that deep area of low pressure. The warm front will bring with it a band of rain to begin with. The cold front brings with it showers through the course of the afternoon. The Met Office have already issued a yellow weather warning for wind. Could see some severe gales across western coastal parts, gusts of up to 80 miles per hour. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
So you're going to go and visit your namesake up in Perthshire, John?
Sean's wee snowman pal. No, probably pass on that.
Well, that is all from us this evening.
And we'll leave you with these snowy scenes. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye-bye.